When we think about strength training, we usually picture someone in the gym straining under heavy weights for hours every single week. Because that feels so out of reach, most of us stick to running or cycling for our health. Resistance training just seems like too much of a time commitment. However, a 2022 meta-analysis reveals that the actual time required to see significant health improvements is far lower than most people realize. We are going to look at the specific weekly dose needed, the threshold where those benefits actually start to disappear, and the specific combination of exercises that leads to the best outcomes. Reducing the risk of premature death doesn't require living at the gym. It simply requires a very specific approach to your weekly routine. To find these numbers, researchers from Tohoku, Waseda, and Kyushu universities analyzed 16 different studies tracking health outcomes in adults over several years. They found that regular muscle strengthening, which includes bodyweight movements like push-ups and squats, reduces the risk of heart disease and cancer by 10 to 17%. We look at a J-shaped curve plotting weekly exercise against mortality risk. Risk drops quickly, reaching its lowest point at 30 to 60 minutes per week. But after 140 minutes, that trend reverses, and the protective effect entirely disappears. This suggests for longevity, more isn't necessarily better. Pushing for extreme volume can actually negate the benefits you're training for. There is, however, one major exception to this rule: diabetes. For diabetes, the researchers saw an L-shaped curve. The risk drops sharply at 60 minutes of training and then simply stays low, regardless of how many extra hours you put in. But the most significant impact on lifespan comes when we look at how strength training interacts with aerobic activity. While strength training is effective on its own, pairing it with cardio creates a synergistic effect that is superior to either activity by itself. When combined, the risk of death from cardiovascular disease drops by 46%. While these findings are consistent, they rely on self-reported data and US-based studies, so there are still questions about how these results might vary across the globe. Even so, the data suggests a clear division of labor. Cardio supports the heart and lungs, while a small amount of resistance training protects the rest of the body systems. So, how do you put this into practice without overcomplicating your life? The goal is to hit that 30 to 60-minute window every week. The most efficient way to do that is 2 sessions of about 20 to 30 minutes each. If your main goal is health and disease prevention, try not to exceed 2.5 hours of heavy lifting a week, as that's where we start to see the benefits drop off. You don't need a gym membership for this either. Simple bodyweight squats, standard push-ups, and basic resistance bands are enough to meet the requirements of the study. Real improvements in longevity don't come from occasional high-intensity exhaustion. They come from finding this specific balance of consistency and moderation.